What if everything you know about America began with one impossible journey and a series of decisions that changed the fate of the entire world? Long before skyscrapers, Hollywood, and the White House, this land belonged to millions of native people who'd built thriving civilizations for thousands of years. Then, in 1492, one voyage across the Atlantic set history on a completely different path. What followed was centuries of exploration, revolution, war, expansion, and innovation that transformed 13 small colonies into the world's most influential superpower. But here's the question: what do you believe was the single most important moment in American history? Let us know in the comments, and now let's travel back to where the story truly begins. Long before the United States existed, long before the first European ship appeared on the horizon, North America was already home to millions of people. For thousands of years, Native American civilizations had flourished across the continent. From the frozen lands of Alaska to the dense eastern forests, across the endless Great Plains and into the deserts of the Southwest, hundreds of unique nations lived, traded, hunted, farmed, and built remarkable societies. These were not isolated tribes living simple lives. Many developed complex governments, advanced agriculture, large cities, and vast trading networks that stretched for hundreds of miles. The Mississippian civilization built enormous earthwork cities like Cahokia, once one of the largest cities in North America. Further south, the Pueblo people constructed multi-story stone villages that still stand today. In the Northeast, the powerful Iroquois Confederacy united several nations under one political alliance, creating one of history's earliest examples of representative government. Across the Great Plains, skilled hunters followed the massive buffalo herds that provided food, clothing, shelter, and survival. Every region developed its own traditions, languages, beliefs, and way of life. Nature wasn't something they tried to conquer, it was something they respected. Forests, rivers, mountains, and animals were considered part of a living world that connected every generation. For thousands of years, this vast continent continued to grow and evolve. No one knew that across the Atlantic Ocean, a journey was about to begin, a journey that would forever change America and the entire world. By the late 1400s, Europe was changing. Powerful kingdoms competed for wealth, trade, and influence. The greatest prize of all was Asia. Its spices, silk, gold, and luxury goods were worth fortunes. But reaching Asia was becoming increasingly difficult. The traditional trade routes were controlled by powerful empires, making goods expensive and dangerous to transport. European explorers began searching for a new route. One man believed he had found the answer. His name was Christopher Columbus. Many people believe Columbus wanted to prove the Earth was round. That isn't true. Educated Europeans already knew the Earth was round. Columbus believed something different. He believed the Earth was much smaller than it actually was, and that by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean, he could reach Asia faster than anyone else. After years of rejection, Spain finally agreed to finance his voyage. On August 3, 1492, 3 small ships left the Spanish port of Palos: the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Nearly 90 sailors sailed into waters that few Europeans had ever crossed. Weeks passed. The endless ocean seemed to have no end. Food began running low. fresh water became scarce. Some sailors feared they would never return home. Others demanded they turn back. But Columbus refused. Then, on October 12, 1492, a sailor shouted the words that changed history forever. "Land!" The crew rushed onto the deck. Ahead of them, a tropical island appeared on the horizon. Columbus believed he had reached islands near Asia. He was wrong. He had arrived in the Caribbean, opening the door to an entirely new world for Europe. The people he met welcomed the newcomers peacefully. These were the Taino people who had lived there for generations. Neither side could imagine how dramatically this meeting would reshape history. News of Columbus's voyage spread rapidly across Europe. Suddenly, Spain, Portugal, France, England, and the Netherlands all turned their eyes toward the mysterious lands across the Atlantic. What began as one explorer's risky gamble quickly became a race for land, wealth, power, and empire. Within decades, European ships crossed the Atlantic in growing numbers. Explorers mapped unknown coastlines. Soldiers claimed territories. Missionaries spread Christianity. Settlers established permanent colonies. For Native American civilizations, everything was about to change. Diseases never before seen in the Americas spread rapidly. Entire communities disappeared. Ancient societies weakened, and European influence expanded farther every year. A new chapter in history had begun. The continent that had remained isolated for thousands of years was now becoming the center of a global struggle for power. Soon, England would establish colonies that would eventually become something no one could yet imagine: the United States of America. As European nations rushed to claim land in the New World, England had a different vision. Instead of building small trading posts, the English wanted permanent settlements. In 1607, that vision became reality. Along the banks of the James River, a group of settlers founded Jamestown in present-day Virginia. It was the first English permanent settlement in North America. Life there was anything but easy. Disease spread quickly. Food was scarce. Many settlers were unprepared for the harsh wilderness. During the first winter, hundreds died from starvation and illness. Some historians even call it the starving time. Yet, despite unimaginable hardships, Jamestown survived. Soon, more English colonies appeared. In 1620, another famous ship crossed the Atlantic, the Mayflower. On board were the Pilgrims, a group seeking religious freedom. They landed far north of Virginia, in what is now Massachusetts. Before stepping ashore, they signed the Mayflower Compact, a simple agreement promising to govern themselves fairly. It became one of America's earliest foundations of self-government. Over the next century, more colonies were established. By the 1700s, there were 13 British colonies stretching along the Atlantic coast. Each colony was unique. Some thrived on farming. Others became busy ports filled with merchants and shipbuilders. Cities like Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Charleston grew rapidly. Trade flourished. New opportunities attracted thousands of immigrants from across Europe. On the surface, life seemed prosperous, but beneath that prosperity, tension was quietly growing. The colonies belonged to Great Britain, and Britain expected them to help pay the cost of defending its growing empire. After the expensive French and Indian War ended in 1663, Britain faced enormous debt. The solution seemed simple: tax the colonies. First came the Sugar Act, then the Stamp Act, later the Townshend Acts. Each new tax increased colonial frustration. The colonists had no representatives in the British Parliament, yet Parliament continued making decisions for them. Soon, a powerful slogan echoed through the colonies: "No taxation without representation." The conflict reached its breaking point in 1773. The British government granted special privileges to the East India Company, allowing it to sell tea cheaply in America. Many colonists saw this as another attempt to force British control upon them. On a cold December night, a group of protesters disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians. They quietly boarded British ships anchored in Boston Harbor. Then, one crate after another, they threw 342 chests of tea into the icy water. History remembers this event as the Boston Tea Party. Britain was furious. In response, the government passed harsh new laws known as the Intolerable Acts. Boston's harbor was closed. Colonial self-government was restricted. British soldiers gained greater authority. Instead of intimidating the colonies, these punishments united them. For the first time, leaders from different colonies met together to discuss a common response. The relationship between Britain and its American colonies had reached the point of no return. Within 2 years, the first shots of the American Revolution would be fired, and a new nation would begin its fight for independence.
By 1775, the tension had become impossible to contain. British soldiers and colonial militia now stood face to face. Neither side wanted to fire the first shot, but history had already chosen its course. On the morning of April 19, 1775, everything changed. In the small towns of Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, British troops marched to seize colonial weapons. Instead, they were met by armed American militia. Then, a single gunshot echoed across the quiet countryside. To this day, no one knows who fired it. History remembers it as the shot heard around the world. The American Revolutionary War had begun. Farmers, blacksmiths, shopkeepers, and ordinary citizens suddenly became soldiers. They weren't the most experienced army, they weren't the best equipped, but they were fighting for something they believed was worth every sacrifice: freedom. Soon, the colonies needed a leader. They chose a respected Virginian, George Washington. Calm, disciplined, and determined, Washington accepted command of the Continental Army. The early months were incredibly difficult. The British Army was one of the strongest military forces on Earth. Its soldiers were professionally trained. Its navy ruled the oceans. The American Army often lacked food, weapons, uniforms, even shoes. Many soldiers marched through snow, leaving bloody footprints behind them. Yet, they refused to surrender. Then came one of the most daring moments of the war. On Christmas night, 1776, Washington led thousands of soldiers across the icy Delaware River. Battling freezing winds and darkness, they launched a surprise attack on Hessian forces in Trenton. The victory was small, but its impact was enormous. It gave the struggling revolution new hope. As the war continued, support arrived from overseas. France, still eager to weaken Britain, formed an alliance with the Americans. French soldiers, money, weapons, and powerful naval forces transformed the balance of the war. After years of brutal fighting, the decisive moment finally arrived. In 1781, British General Charles Cornwallis became trapped at Yorktown, Virginia. American troops surrounded his army on land, while the French Navy blocked escape by sea. There was no way out. On October 19th, Cornwallis surrendered. The Revolutionary War was effectively over. 2 years later, in 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially recognized the independence of the United States. For the first time, a new nation stood among the countries of the world. But winning independence was only the beginning. Now came an even greater challenge. How could 13 independent colonies become one united country? The answer would shape democracy forever. Leaders gathered to write a new constitution, one that would create a government unlike any the world had ever seen. And soon, a former general named George Washington would become the first president of the United States.
The American Revolution was over. The United States was finally free, but independence did not guarantee success. The new nation faced enormous challenges. Its economy was weak, its government was fragile, and many people questioned whether this young republic could survive at all. In 1787, leaders from across the 13 states gathered in Philadelphia. Their mission was ambitious: to create a government strong enough to unite the nation, but limited enough to protect individual freedom. The result became one of history's most influential documents, the United States Constitution. It established 3 separate branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, creating a system of checks and balances that continues to shape America today. In 1789, George Washington was unanimously elected as the nation's first president. His leadership helped build trust in the new government. Over the next decades, America expanded rapidly. In 1803, President Jefferson completed the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the United States almost overnight. Explorers Lewis and Clark were sent west, mapping unknown lands and opening the frontier. But America's growth came with a terrible cost. Native American nations were forced from their ancestral lands. Entire communities were displaced, and thousands lost their homes, cultures, and lives. As the country grew, another crisis divided the nation: slavery. Northern states increasingly opposed it. Southern states depended on it. The disagreement became impossible to solve peacefully. In 1861, the United States descended into the Civil War. It became the bloodiest conflict in American history. More than 600,000 Americans lost their lives. During the war, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring freedom for enslaved people in Confederate states. In 1865, the Union emerged victorious. Slavery was abolished, but only days later, Lincoln was assassinated. The nation mourned the loss of the man who had preserved the Union. Despite the devastation, America rebuilt. Factories expanded, railroads connected the continent. Millions of immigrants arrived seeking opportunity. By the early 20th century, the United States had become one of the world's largest industrial powers. Then came 2 devastating global conflicts, World War I and World War II. America played a decisive role in both wars. After 1945, the United States emerged as one of the world's 2 great superpowers. The Cold War began. The space race inspired a generation. In 1969, Apollo 11 placed the first humans on the moon. The words, "That's one small step for man," became part of history forever. America continued to shape science, technology, medicine, business, and global culture. The 21st century brought new challenges. The attacks of September 11, 2001, changed the nation forever. New technologies transformed everyday life. The internet, artificial intelligence, and space exploration entered a new era. Today, the United States remains one of the world's most influential nations. Its history is a story of extraordinary achievement, great courage, painful mistakes, and constant reinvention. From the ancient civilizations that first called this land home to a modern nation leading innovation across the globe, America's journey has shaped the course of human history, and its story is still being written. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. In your opinion, what was the most important turning point in American history?